Welcome to the MVP Show. Today we're joined by the Forms Pro global expert, Megan Walker. A few months ago, she was one of my mentees in the 90-day mentoring challenge, and now she's a bona fide Microsoft MVP for business applications. So sit back and relax and get to know Megan a little more if you don't know her very well at all in today's MVP Show. Full show notes for this episode will be found at nz365guy.com/139. Now let's get on with the show. Hey Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, good to have you on here. It's been a long time coming. Thanks for pestering me to finally get you on.
Once. Thanks. Make you sound like a right loser.
No, you are amazing, and it's so good that you are an MVP. How long have you been an MVP now?
Oh, May 1st.
Wow.
So not long, like 5 months or something?
Oh, wow, very, very recent.
Still fairly new, yes.
Tell me, what was the journey like to becoming an MVP for you?
For me, it was a bit frustrating, I think. So I hope with anyone that's an MVP, or with the majority, that the reason that they're starting out down this journey is because they want to share and they've got that passion and drive inside of them that they would be doing it anyway. So for me, I'd always been in sort of like training type roles or education type roles where there's always an element of sharing, and I'd done blogging and marketing and stuff like that in the past. So I was like, oh, I can combine all of this and let me go ahead and just start sharing things that I'm learning, because if it's new to me, there will be other people out there that it's going to be new to them. So started blogging. So I think I'd been doing it for about a year. Yeah, about a year. And then, and I cannot pronounce his last name, Auntie, who we know as a fellow MVP, he contacted me and said, would you be interested if I nominated you as an MVP? And this was in the days when it didn't matter who nominated you, so it didn't have to be an MVP or a Microsoft full-time employee. Yeah, so he nominated me, great, and I naively thought, I'll get nominated, someone will see all of the stuff I've done, and then, ta-da, it'll just be bestowed. Not having someone like yourself that was out there and sharing what the process was, and didn't know any MVPs to say, hey, how does this go? But then it seemed to drag on, and then lots of other people were saying, I'm sure you'll be an MVP soon. I'm sure that'll happen soon. So then you get the sort of the idea that, well, if other people are telling you it should be happening, then why hasn't it happened? So I think it's kind of got a bit of a double-edged sword, if that's the right term, where it's great that you're getting that support from other people, but then because you're getting the support, you're thinking, well, why am I not? And then it almost changes the feeling about it, if that makes sense, to where you think, well, why haven't I got it? And then and that was a hard thing to where, like, come on, Megan, bring yourself down a few notches. Like, you're not that good. Like, if you're not going to get it, you're not going to get it. So it was frustrating, I think, more than anything. And maybe even sort of tainted when I did get it. I don't know. So
yeah, no, that's valid. And and I think, if I was to observe why that is, I assume that basically the people administrating the program are overloaded, and hence at that time, right, they around that time they removed the ability for self-domination. And my understanding was they were getting literally thousands and thousands of people self-nominating that were not even remotely close to fitting the profile of what they're looking for in an MVP. So, but of course they had to process all that, and the good ones got lost in their noise. It was a bit like a denial of service attack in a way.
Yeah, no, I can totally see why they've changed the approach, for sure. Even though for some it might feel frustrating, because it's almost, someone might think, well, I have to know an MVP to get nominated by one. So then that kind of maybe changes to where MVPs might be getting a lot more people reaching out to them that they don't know. Hey, can you nominate me? So I think there's also you need to understand that you can't just approach someone. You don't just walk up to somebody in the street and say, hey, can you do something for me? Like you've got to have a relationship with them of some kind, or at least have been following them, been commenting on their videos, been sharing their content, that sort of thing, so they start to notice you. And then hopefully look at your content. So yeah, I think it changes, but you're right. I totally get why that process had to change.
Yeah, totally. You first came onto my radar as Emoji Meg, and
thanks, Chris Huntingford.
So it might not have been that name stuck, but of course you wrote a blog post around using emojis in Dynamics CRM or 365. How did that discovery come about for you, and how did it change the way you were able to visualize data in Dynamics at the time?
So the discovery was completely and utterly random, and it was because I was using what's it called? The social engagement tool, where I was saying, right, if somebody tweets, and I think it was like Ignite was going on at the time, so I was like, right, well, if someone tweets and uses this hashtag, then let's go ahead and create a lead in Dynamics. So I'd set it up, couldn't quite get it to work, forgot about it. I could get the lead to be created, but there was something else I was trying to do and I couldn't quite get that to work. So I just was like, oh, I'll come back to it. 2 or 3 weeks later, logged back into that environment, and I see all the leads, and then all of a sudden I start seeing emojis in the topic of the lead. I was like, oh, hang on a second. So I was looking at it, and then I thought, well, that's in the text field. And then it was just kind of like, I wonder if. So I looked at, I created an option set, and sure enough, I was able to put it in there. And then thought, well, how does it display, with a graph? How does it display in views? And so all of those things where people had been sharing, where you could put like images or icons within views, so that I was like, well, you don't need to do that anymore. With a bit of code, you can now just put in an emoji. And when I shared the blog, I thought, everybody knows this, because every time I shared something, I thought, I'm putting stuff out there that people know. And it's kind of that, I'll do it because I've learned and maybe someone else will learn. But it was the subset of people that were reading my blog at that time. It was my husband, bless him, and I signed him up to get my blogs. And he still to this day he saves them the email, but he doesn't ever read it, and that's fine. So him, my dad, and maybe like one of my brothers or something like that. So I knew that I'll put it out there, but I didn't expect anything. And then it was Chris Huntingford that had seen it was a lot of people had seen it, but you know what he's like. He's so larger than life, and when he shares stuff, everything's capital letters, and that was my first experience with Chris. But so he shared and was like, "Oh my god, blah blah blah," and then all of a sudden it was just ping 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 with notifications on Twitter and then LinkedIn, and it was crazy. So yeah, it was a weird one, but ultimately from that point forward, that's when I started to kind of get into the community, as it was, and actually start making contacts and meeting people, and finding that people were actually interested in what I was sharing. So it was a really fluky, weird one, to be honest with you. And it's one of those sort of once in a moment that you can't plan for. It just happens.
Yeah. So true. That is awesome. Tell me, how do you balance, like one of the topics that have come up recently, requests that I've had in, etc., about the, how to become an MVP, is how do you balance your work, your community activities, and life? How do you balance this? What works for you? What have you found that's enabled you to maintain your sanity while juggling multiple or wearing multiple hats?
Yeah, I think each person has to do what's right for them. I see some people saying, "Oh, I haven't been home in 2 months, or I'm going to be, traveling for 50 of the next 80 days, whatever it might be." And that to me is like, no, I'm not. That is not right for me. But it might be right for someone else. I had a conversation with a colleague yesterday, and she's like, I don't know how you manage it all. I want to start doing stuff. And I said, yeah, but you have 2 small children under the age of 10. Unfortunately, I would have loved to have had kids, but unfortunately I don't. And it's not that what I'm doing is a replacement for children. I do not mean it at all in that way, because I would give stuff up to have been able to have had a family, but I don't. Therefore, the time that people with families with small children are taking to, do play dates with other kids, do sports activities, take them to gymnastics, whatever, that time that you're spending, yes, I love my husband, but I need something else other than, I've got to have something else that's going on. So for me, it's still a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's easy. It's still a lot of planning. I know you recently did a video on that in terms of like planning your content, and that people see you sort of in their mind maybe churning stuff out all the time. Oh my God, there's another blog. I had one that went out yesterday. I've got one that went out today. I didn't sit and write them the night before. I did them, and they've been sitting there waiting to go for a while. So I think also, and with, I view it as we are, whether we think we are or not, we're all quite creative. The people that push out the blogs, that push out the video, you've got to have a certain amount of creativity, and like anything where someone has an element of creativity with it, a writer, a painter, an artist of some kind, you have those peaks and troughs where you're like, oh my God, I've got 10 blog posts I've just thought of. And then you can create them, and then thank God for that, because then you've got the time where you just think, I can't be bothered, I'm really tired, I'm sick, I'm poorly, I'm hungover, I'm whatever. I don't have the mental capacity to do it. So those are the times where you're glad that you had those moments of inspiration and churned out stuff and was able to do it. And I think that's the other thing in terms of any sort of advice to someone that wants to start out with blogging. Don't push all of your stuff out at the same time just because you're like, oh my God, I've come up with 4 blog posts. I'll schedule them one after the other. Don't do it. And I did that in the beginning, to where there were some weeks I had like 3 blog posts, and so because I'd had the inspiration, but then I'd have another week where I'd be struggling and think, why didn't I just wait? So yeah, I think it's hard for anyone. And then with the presentations or the events, I know some people like love it and want to travel all the time and go to different places, and that's fine. I try and space those out where I'm, like, if I'm traveling to other countries, because I absolutely love spending time with my husband and I don't like being apart from him. So if I can help it, I'll try maybe like once a month, once every couple of months. It's in a foreign place. Then other than that, it's somewhere in the UK where I can get back to it the next day.
That's good. You spent a lot of time in the US. What took you to the United States? I take it you lived there for some period of time.
Yeah,
What was your journey around going there and then coming back to the UK?
Yeah, so my career was initially, it was hotel and catering management. So that's the degree that I have, which is I'm putting to really good use. So I did that, and as part of the degree, with a lot of degrees, you have like a not necessarily a gap year, but you've got a year where you go off and do some kind of placement. So you're getting that real world hands-on experience. So they had placements in Newcastle, which was my hometown, or they said, oh, we've got placements in Atlanta in America. I was like, well, why the hell would I stay in Newcastle? So went to Atlanta, never been to America before, and worked in a hotel which had like a winery, a spa, 4 golf courses. It was a pretty massive place in Atlanta. So worked there for a year as an intern, was there for 6 months, met a lovely man, started a relationship, and then fell in love, and my mother said, you better come back home and finish your degree. So I did. So I came back, finished my degree. My now husband, we did long distance for like a year and a half. So then at the time he has a son, and his son at the time was 6 years old. So there was absolutely no question that, I was going to move over there to be with him. So 14 years did that and lived over there. It was a really long time. I mean, I moved, and that was going to be where I would spend my life. So it was that was the plan. And I was 23 when I moved over, like for good at the time. And so there's that 23-year-old, oh my God, I'm in love, I'm moving to America, it's amazing, like this, that there's a different mentality. And then as I got older, and also when we got to the point where we realized that a children of our own wasn't necessary in the future, it shifts your perspective on what's important. And for me, it then became my own family, like my blood relatives, my mother, my father, my brothers, my sister, friends, that kind of thing. And it got more obvious that moving back to England was the right thing. It was just then, when was the right time? When was my stepson old enough to be self-sufficient, living on his own, that kind of thing. So then 2014, I think. Summer 2014, we moved back over.
You've recently done a massive series and continuing to do a series on Forms Pro.
I was going to say, I said before, Emojis was like a once in a lifetime thing that you can't plan. And I think I've been quite lucky, because I think Forms Pro is a bit like that as well, to where the reason I started looking at it was because I was working on a project, and we'd shown voice of the customer, and I've got quite a few blogs that I've done on voice of the customer. I've got a video series that I've got on YouTube, all on voice of the customer. So I thought, oh crap, well, I better start looking at this Forms Pro, because at the time it wasn't something that had been announced that it was going to replace voice of the customer, but I'd heard rumblings, and it was kind of like one of those things, like, why are they going to bring out these two different things that are potentially opposing one another? So it was, reading between the lines and saying, right, I better learn a bit about Forms Pro. So the first thing that I did, the first blog, was just here's what it is sort of thing. And then as I started delving more, and I was like, oh, well, hang on a second, we can do stuff with Flow. Where are the survey responses stored? Oh, they're in CDS. Well, hang on a second, what else can we do? So each thing that I've done, and I've learned more and more, and the fact that nobody else was writing about it, and also speaking to certain people and saying, do you think I should stop? And it's kind of like, let's carry on for as long as I can sharing this content, because there isn't really anything else out there. So and it's been the thing that has helped me the most with learning Flow. And that's something that I didn't even think was going to come out of it. Which is awesome, because yes, it's a survey tool, but for me, it's not about logging into Forms Pro itself. It's about, what are you doing, either as using triggers from CDS to actually send out the survey request to someone, or when those responses come back in, what are you then doing with those responses? And to me, that's all done using Flow. So yes, you might say, oh, Megan's she's just doing Forms Pro. It's a whole lot more than that, because it's really, for me, more about Flow and my journey through that, and what I've learned with that I think is more important. And like anyone that's using voice of the customer, you need to start looking at Forms Pro if you want a survey tool, and you don't want to have to go out and buy something additional that sits outside of Power Platform. Then you need to look at Forms Pro.
I think the survey nature of Forms Pro is its, if you like, smallest feature. And I'm, as in, Forms Pro can replace so many use cases within a business that data needs to be captured without having to use other forms over data, like we're more traditionally used to with Dynamics and CDS, is that it is a tool that could address so many different, what I call clipboard scenarios within a business, right? Stuff that is filling out, inspection, whatever, could easily be done in Forms Pro and then fed into CDS and have all those kind of first-party benefits, like, interacting with it with Flow and reporting against it and all that other rich functionality with CDS. Those forms are just so fantastic. I'd love a few more features, but I think that it was a very, very smart move to take the Forms tool and put it over CDS.
Agreed, absolutely. And I think we're only going to see like that just continue to grow. I mean, the team are pushing things out like every month, and I'll log back in and I'll be like, well, hang on a second, that button wasn't there before, or that option wasn't there before. So it is improving continually. They're definitely, the team are listening to feedback. They're adding in new features. They're changing things based on feedback from either people like myself, other MVPs, and also obviously customers as well. So they are really listening, and they're really changing things and trying to add in new benefits, better ways of moving around within Forms Pro. So yeah, I think it's just only going to improve for sure.
Have they added a capture yet?
Not yet. I think to me, some of the things that will make a massive difference is, yes, capture, also the ability to add attachments, so upload documents of some kind. So you're talking about being able to use this out in the field, someone being able to go out on site, there's something that's broken, I want to go ahead and take a photograph of that as well, or somebody that's reporting an incident of some kind and needs to take a photograph of it at home, whatever it might be. So those things, but I think honestly that if they had the ability to upload attachments, that would be absolutely huge. I do believe there are some people that are holding off on that because that's such a big part of what they would need from a survey tool.
Okay, so I tell you what, I reckon neither of those features are going to come to it.
I reckon attachments will, but I don't think it'll be this year.
I don't think attachments will, and I don't think capture will.
Oh, why? What's your rationale for that?
Because it's a licensing thing.
No, there should be a license-free call.
the engineering to put a capture into this solution is simple. It's less than a week's worth of dev cycle. It is super, super simple. There is no reason why technically it couldn't have been done on day one. It's that simple. The fact that it's not in there tells me the reason it's not in there is strategic. The reason why attachment upload's not there, it is strategic. With the way that with the way CDS has now been split across various data store type technology, it's a no-brainer to provide that attachment in there. And it's not a heavy engineering piece of work. But I reckon their plan is you should use Power Apps Portal for that type of thing, or a Power App, and therefore I think there are more strategic reasons why they haven't appeared rather than engineering challenges.
I don't know. I think the attachments will. I mean, looking on what's it called, the user voice, is that right? Yeah. So looking on there, now it is something that's been outstanding and been there as like I think it's like the highest voted request for attachments, and there are things on there that seem to indicate that it is being worked on, but. So hopefully they will go back on that. Like I said, that to me is a massive piece of functionality that is needed. So and Voice of the Customer had that. So if you're looking at a true replacement, then that should be
awesome. Added. Let's see. Okay. Let's get on to some quick fire questions to put you on the spot. Are you ready?
Always.
Here's your first. Would you rather? Are you ready for a would you rather?
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather date someone you love or date someone who loves you?
Oh, date someone that loves me.
Awesome. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
Oh, Jesus. Oh, I don't know. For me, honestly, it's anything to do with my work. It's anything like I thrive on people being happy with what I've delivered. Whether that's someone reading a blog post and saying, "Hey, that really helped me." That's the sort of thing that I love. So I think it's more about my abilities and my work, that if that's complimented, that means more.
That's good. That's good. What piece are you on the Monopoly board?
Oh, the dog.
The dog. Okay, that's very good. What is one family tradition you'd like to carry on in the future?
Oh, see, that makes me sad because I don't feel... That's one thing that I feel I've missed out on, is not having the ability to take family traditions that I had as a child and pass them on to anyone. So actually it makes me quite wistful because I don't have them. Everything around Christmas, I think, as a kid, traditions that you have as a family, you know, we handmade Christmas crackers for each other, you know, like having stockings, certain foods that you'd have, that kind of thing. So if I had kids, that's what I'd like to pass on and keep going.
If you could have any celebrity be your best friend, who would you pick?
Queen Latifah. I love Queen Latifah. I think she's I don't know what it is about her, but she's pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Random? Yeah.
Okay, final question. What were the 3 biggest turning points in your life?
Going to America for the first time, and meeting Otis, my husband. Taking an absolute leap and leaving hospitality after I'd been like earning like really good money because I'd moved up. I was like a general manager of a restaurant, and knowing that if I did not get out of restaurants, I would be in there for life, and I needed to get out of it because it was like, you know, 4:00 in the morning or finishing at 2 a.m. Dealing with drunk idiots or whatever. So leaving that, going to work for a recruitment agency, and then they used a software that I then started learning, and that software company basically recruited me and I started working for them, and that's how I got into working with software. So that was massive. So taking that leap, taking a shitty job in recruitment, sorry Alison, sorry anyone that's in recruitment, but taking an awful job that I hated, that was massive. And then moving back to the UK, that was it was a hard decision to make. And it was a lot of money, and it was a lot of stress and worry because it took him a while to find a job. Was my husband going to be happy? Would he resent me? All of those things. And that has massively paid off for both of us. So yeah, those are three really big things. And if I'd done them differently, then I don't know where it'd be now.
Yeah. So good. Meg, it's been awesome to have you on the show. If people want to follow what you do, follow your content, that type of thing, give me all the addresses that they should go to connect with you.
Yeah, it should be pretty easy because I've got Megan V Walker in most of it. So my website is Megan V for Victoria, if you're interested, meganvwalker.com. YouTube is youtube.com/Megan V Walker, twitter.com/Megan V Walker. The only one that's different, and I cannot change it, which is annoying, is LinkedIn, and that's just Megan Walker. So
I love the consistency. Really well done.
Me too. And LinkedIn pisses me off because I don't see a Megan V Walker on there, but it just won't let me change it. So all of those different places. And the only thing I ask on LinkedIn, I don't know what you feel about this, but if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's totally fine. But just send a message. Like, just send a message so I know that you're a real person, that you know, why, how you heard about me, that kind of thing. It's just nice to kind of have a bit of an introduction to someone rather than just saying, hey, let's connect, and having no message. So that's the only thing I would say.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. The podcast aims to help those who wish to grow their career in Microsoft or become an MVP in the future. And it's a pleasure to get great guests on the show like Megan. If you want more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Or you could watch the video series that I've been doing on YouTube. So go to youtube.com/NZ365guy and look for the playlist on how to become an MVP. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/139. See you next week.